All right. Well, thank you for being here with us, Ricardo. It is my pleasure to have you as our first guest of this podcast where we talk about artists, their background, how they got into art, and everything else. So, without further ado, would you mind telling us a little bit about your background as an artist? You are a full time artist,
Full time.
correct? So, would you tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a full time artist? Where you got your education? Like, have you always been an artist?
Well, I could draw from the moment I can remember. I mean, I don't remember a day I wasn't drawing. My parents would tell me when I was like 3 years old, they'd put a piece of paper and a pencil on the coffee table so I could draw pictures for my uncles and my aunts who were very superstitious, and they thought I was, possessed by something because I could draw so well. I've always been good at it. My parents decided real early on I was going to be an artist when I grew up. There was never any question, doctor, lawyer, engineer. No, that's my other brothers and my sisters were all going to do that stuff. Ricky's going to be an artist. So, hey, path of least resistance. God knows I love to draw. So I just kept at it. Um, I learned to draw. I learned to hone my skills from the comic books that I collected. That's really where I learned my basic anatomy, the superhero comics. You'd be surprised uh, how many of those comic book artists back in the 60s, 1960s, not 18, mm, had fine art education and I mean, were really good with the anatomy, and it showed. So I learned to draw from them. Then my parents decided I was a bookworm, and I still love to read. I can't, if I'm not drawing, I'm painting, I'm reading. So they bought a World Book Encyclopedia. Are you familiar with that? World Book Encyclopedias?
Oh, yes.
They'd,
Sorry.
they'd get you,
Yeah.
the A to Z. Every
Mhm.
book was one letter. And I opened up the letter A, and they bought the encyclopedia from me. I opened up the letter A, and I found art, and it was just the biggest section in the whole thing. The letter A was a big book, and it had every artist from the caves at Altamira all the way up to what was current at that year. And I was absolutely stunned by the Flemish artists, Bo Bruegel, Holbein, and then Velasquez and Goya. Um, and then, yeah, I wanted to do what they were doing. I was 9, 9 years old, and I decided I wanted to be able to make pictures that looked like that. So, but as I got older, I thought I was going to be a comic book artist. Going to graduate high school, get a degree, and then go to New York and start drawing for DC or Marvel. And I took a painting class, and it ruined me for life. Absolutely ruined me. After that, I didn't want to do anything but paint, and I just kept at it. Um, Life got in the way, so my dad died the year I graduated, BFA, and since he never let my mom work or drive, and we still had a mortgage to pay, I had to stay at home instead of trying to go for the MFA somewhere, or continue further my education. So I, I kept the job that was supposed to be temporary, and I ended up staying there 37 years until I retired in 2017. Then since then I've been full time, but I mean I never stopped painting. I worked from 7 to 3:30, then I'd get out. Then I met a girl, we got married, we had kids, so then I'd have to make sure everybody got fed and all that stuff. We'd have dinner, and then I'd go to the studio. And I had different studios over over the years, all over town, really. Then I ended up at the K space, but I got my degree at the university. It was called Corpus Christi State University back in those days. It was only a junior and senior year, and so I got my BFA then. Then I came back in 2014 and got my master's. So now that's basically it in a nutshell.
What made you decide that you needed to go get a degree for art or like wanted to get a degree?
I didn't. My son started. He graduated high school. He started attending the university, and he's an art student, and he's an artist now by the same name, except I gave him two extra middle names, so he wouldn't be a junior. Ricardo Vicente Jose Ruiz. But after he was done with his first year here at the university, he told me, "Hey, old man, you should go back and get your master's." I think that ship's already passed, bro. I'm in my late 50s, early 50s. I don't think a guy my age just be worried about it anymore. I just got to keep working. He goes, well, there are a lot of people your age at the school, and it wouldn't be a problem. I said, yeah, well, I don't think I can go back to A&M because got my BFA there. He goes, no, I talked to Jack. Jack Rohn was the chair at the time. He goes, I talked to Jack. He said you could. I said, okay, well, maybe we'll think about it. He goes, well, I already signed you up. You got accepted. You start August. And that's literally, when I looked at my wife, I go, geez, I guess I'm going to school in August. 3 years, 3 years, working full time, going to school full time to get the degree. Yeah, crazy, crazy.
How did you manage to balance working and being an artist? Like, I know a lot of artists, when they go get that real job, they get that salary so they can survive, and then their artistic side kind of drops off or becomes more of a hobby. How did you decide, like, go about?
I couldn't. I mean, I'm compelled to make art, and I'm compelled to make each one better than the one before. I mean, I just can't help it. I'd get out of work, and and I had a hard job. I worked in a warehouse. It shaped my physique. Pushing and pulling and lifting things in a warehouse all day long. I'd get home, and the minute I clocked out, I just switched that off. I wouldn't even think about it, because work was just a means to provide for insurance and food. The painting was important. So I'd go home, hang out with the family for a bit. But I always put 3 hours in, 4 hours in. Then I'd put, 8 hours on the weekends, I mean, we never took a vacation. I was working, so it is what it is. I don't know that I'd recommend it. I don't know. It's the kind of life you want to live. I wish I had more confidence in myself and I would have maybe quit 20 years ago, and just said, you know what, let's just take the chance. But, health insurance is expensive. And grown boys with crooked teeth,
Right.
grown boys with crooked teeth, man.
So you mentioned that you had a couple of different studios. Have you been in Corpus this whole time?
Born and raised here. I actually worked in the hospital where I was born. Life, I spent 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, 3 years. It was a while back in Wisconsin. I was up there on a scholarship at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. But, after 2 or 3 winters, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed those sunny climes, so I came back. I should have stayed, took it out. I really only had a year and a half to finish. But, man, those winters are bleak.
Not built for it.
I'm not built for it. And back then I was really skinny, so man, I was always cold.
So, like, now you have your own personal studio, but do you miss having a community, like a shared community space? I know you mentioned that you used to have a studio at K Space.
Well, I mean, I do miss hanging out with other artists on a regular basis. Jimmy Page, and we were the hardcore members up there, along with a few other folk, Gerald Lopez, Dave Wheeler. I can always count on them to be there, unless it was really, really hot. But I mean, K-Space is a hard place to make art. It's really hot in the summer and it's really cold in the winter, and you really got to want to do it, but I did. Towards the end there, I actually brought in a window air conditioner and just propped it up with a little bucket to hold on it. And I just pointed it towards me. I put a shower curtain across my space and listen to NPR with Jimmy while I paint. It's a hard life up there. It separates the men from the boys, that's for sure.
There you go. So I know that you have a huge body of work, and there's a lot of symbolism in your work. Like, there's a lot of repeating symbols. I know you like to be a storyteller and tell stories. Could you tell us a little bit about, like, the common symbols that we see throughout your work? For example, like the mariachi frogs.
Well, I mean, everything that I paint at some point walked across my path in my life. Like the mariachi frogs or the martyr frogs. I mean, I have these frogs doing all kinds of stuff. but they came about because when I was a kid, we'd go to Mexico to visit family, and before we'd come back to Corpus, we'd always stop in Mercado, and we'd, go shopping with my parents. And of course, as little kids, I was happy with the candy, but I always wanted one of those little frogs, playing the guitar, playing the accordion. And my dad always said, "No, take that movie at home." No, I don't think so. So I never got one when I was a kid. Well, I grew up, I would, and hanging out with friends. We'd go to Mexico and pick up stuff. Go drinking, eat some cabrito, get some souvenirs. I bought some really nice sculptures, ceramic sculptures, beautiful stuff. Still hold up today. And I carry those heavy ass things the whole afternoon because, when am I going to come back to whatever town it was, Pobeso, Laredo, whatever. But on one trip, there were some frogs there. And they were like $2 a piece. One frog playing an accordion, little tiny frog playing an accordion. Another 3 frogs, one behind a bar, and one frog's drinking a little bottle of beer or liquor, and the other one's passed out on the ground. It says, "Agua toman los bueyes, hombres licor," which is, waters for the oxen, men drink liquor. Which I thought was, that's like the kind of advice my uncle would give me, my Uncle Trejo. So I took that home. I took a few of them home. And when I got back to the house, I'm sitting there in the kitchen and light up a cigarette, get a beer, and I'm looking at all the stuff I collected. Look at this frog, and as I study, I realize there's a little cinch between its legs, a little string, just kind of tied a knot between its legs. And what is that all about? So then I looked at the lips, and there's another cinch there. A little string was just tied up, and I could see sawdust peeking through its lips. I go, "Holy smokes! This is a toy. This is a taxidermy toad. Somebody killed a frog, pulled its guts out, stuffed it with sawdust and shellacked it, and then nailed its little feet to the wooden platform and nailed his little hands to the accordion." So they became martyr frogs for me. The idea of the martyr frog took hold of me. And I saw all these paintings about these frogs, that are suffering for the sake of mankind, like the Catholic faith would have you think about regular saints. So then I start pinning milagros onto them. Milagros are little medallions that Catholic Church provides, and you put them on a religious statue, and you pray for that saint to intercede with God for you. And the little medallion symbolizes what you have a problem with. It could be lungs, little metal lungs, little metal foot, little metal hand if you broke your hand, that kind of stuff. So I would pin that all over the frog with blood dripping down, and people were buying them anyway. I was trying to make them as pretty as I could, at the same time really bloody. And I just wanted to see what I could get away with.
Mm-hmm.
And look, they're all hanging somewhere. They're in collections somewhere. It was okay. So that's one of it. Then there was a little doll that I used to use back in the 80s. My sister and I were walking through a mall, and we were passing by KB stores, and there's a little dog trying to get away, just crawling, little girl doll, crawling on her hands and knees, but she's got a little wire attached to her ankle, and she can't get it any further, right? So I was moved, I was touched. So I went and I asked the young lady behind the counter, "I'd like to buy that doll." She goes, "Okay, they're over in the corner." "No, I need this one here." She goes, "We don't have a box for it." "Okay." Okay, so she untied it, gave it to me, and she became another protagonist, another actor. Then I just started, every time I acquire something, a toy or objects, any little thing that catches my fancy. I'm like those crows. I see something shiny, I want to take it to the studio. My son's the same way. It's horrible.
I think that's common among artists to become what we call hoarders.
Yeah,
Every little thing.
every little thing. I got a ton of books and just so they become actors in these little plays that I create, the little vignettes. I like to tell stories. A lot of the stories have to do with my family or friends or current events, but a lot of them are just made up by me because my mind just makes stories up all the time.
Interesting. Do you remember the first time you sold a piece?
Yeah, I do. After my dad died, I went a year without actually making any art. I was just working. I was working a night shift from 11 to 7, and then it was just hard for me. I was depressed. Didn't know what I was going to do next. I thought, is this the life I'm going to live? This it? Just going to work in the supply room at a hospital the rest of my life? So I asked God for a sign. So one morning I get to the house, I pull up and I'm angry. I just had a long talk with God on Cross-Side Expressway, and I see a piece of plywood or actually not plywood, masonite on my yard, and I go, I got people just throwing shit on my yard now, perfect, perfect way to end the day. So I go down, pick it up, and it's in the shape of a cross, a very thick, fat cross, right? And then in the middle, there's a picture someone had just used like white paint, and it was the cross was painted like a blackboard green, and then they drew a mass wrestler, real crude, really crude mass wrestler, beautiful, and it hit me. God wants me to paint mass wrestlers. So that afternoon, I emptied out my bedroom, just emptied it out, and I slept on the living room floor for the next, well, really till 92, 91. Anyway, so I started buying books on bodybuilders and wrestlers, and I started creating all these narratives that had to do with basically Adam and Eve kind of themes. My little sister, in her closet, she had all these old dolls that she never threw away, and they were all just like they mangling stuff like from Toy Story. And so I would bring these dolls out, I'd put them on the sofa, and then I'd paint, this mangled doll with this mass wrestler, and they're just kind of reclining on a sofa that's upholsteries, a very floral upholstery and a Garden of Eden kind of theme to it. So I did that, and one day, out of the blue, my mother comes up to me. And it was just, I was painting in my room, and my mother comes up and goes, Ricky, I go, ¿Qué pasó, ma? She goes, hay un gringo en la puerta buscándote. I go, what? There's a white guy at the door and he's looking for you. So, of course I panicked. What the hell's a white guy want?
Right.
What are you doing here? So I go to the door, and it was Greg Ruder, a college professor, and a very good friend of mine, one of my dearest friends. But I've been gone. I disappeared for like a year and a half. I wasn't doing anything except for when I was painting at home, but I wasn't showing anybody. I was just painting at home, thinking at some point I've got to have enough pieces to show someone. So that's what I was doing. I was building a backlog. So he comes in and asks, "What's up, Greg? What are you doing?" He goes, "I just thinking about you, wondering what you were up to." So says, "Are you working?" I go, "Well, yeah, go and take a look." So I showed him the paintings, and he says, I know someone who might want to look at these. So let's load them on the back of the truck and see what we can do. So, all right, we loaded up 4 or 5 of them, and he drove me to the Wilhelm Holland Gallery on Kinney and Chaparral.
Chaparral.
And that's where I met Ben Holland, the guy who ran the gallery there. And Greg showed him the stuff, and Ben said, "Sure, bring him in. We'll show him." He had a show. He was going to have a show like within a few weeks, and someone bought a couple of wrestlers, and that was like 88, the first time. And yeah, I was painting kind of big, 4 feet square, and I was selling for like, I think I sold them for $300, and I got half. It's like, oh, but it's, $150. I was paying $75 for a car payment. At the time, it's, $150 was some good money.
Right.
We ate Whataburgers.
So now your pieces are in a variety of collections, probably across the U.S. Would you talk about some of the pieces that have been collected by people?
Well,
or some of the collections that you're in?
Well, I'm not in any beyond the Art Museum of South Texas. They have a few of my pieces. I'm not in a lot of public collections. I think Del Mar has a piece somewhere. Del Mar College here in Corpus Christi. And obviously the Cheech collection in Riverside, California. The comedian Cheech Marin came to Corpus one year, like in 2009. He saw one of my pieces at the Wilhelm Holland Gallery, and the art museum reached out to me and said he wanted to meet me. So they had the opening that night, and I wasn't really involved with the art museum at the time. So, but I said, yeah, I'll go. My son put a bunch of images on a flash drive. He's 16 at the time, so he knows all that stuff. And we met Cheech, and then he became a collector after that. And he's been a very good patron. So, yeah, my work's at the Riverside at that Cheech Museum. Then a lot of private collections. The reason I'm able to work is because I have really loyal collectors who buy the stuff year after year, several times a year. I've got people who've been buying my stuff since '88, and they're still buying the stuff. And thank God, because Daddy got to pay the bills.
Do you ever struggle between, like, I know a lot of artists struggle with the commercial side of I have to make art that other people will buy versus I want to make art that I just want to make. Do you ever find yourself struggling or fighting between, like, am I making this to sell or am I making this because I actually want to make it and it's just nice that it sells?
That's really the case. I will do commissions, but most of the time, commission piece, they want basically what I do anyway, and they just add their dog into the mix, or make a certain bird or put a certain flower. But it's one of my paintings with a little extra. I don't have a problem. I mean, I've done portraits, and that's for money. I'm not really a big fan of doing portraits. I just photographers grab one of them. They can do it. But uh, no, I think my wife early on would tell me what paint or make something it's going to sell. I go, I don't know what's going to sell. I never know what's going to sell. I have no idea. I'm just going to paint what amuses me, what fascinates me. And I just pray, I hope that someone's going to buy it. Really, that's all you can do. And I've just been really lucky that I don't hold on to stuff for long. So, that's just good fortune.
Do you think a lot of it is good fortune, or do you feel like you go out there and you present yourself and you're, like, making these opportunities for yourself?
Well, every artist has to work to understand why, to make people understand why they do what they do. If someone looks at one of my paintings, like there's a big chicken at the show at the K Space right now, big rooster. Yeah, it's a nice rooster. Yeah. Why'd you paint the rooster? And there's a story behind it. So if you're able to, and that's really what helped me at the beginning, because I come from a family storyteller. So my dad, his brothers they'd sit around for hours just telling us stories about their youth and, about their kids. They made it so you could feel like you're right there in the middle of it. It's always funny. So at the very beginning, when I was first, I'd go to the shows that Ben Holland was hosting, and people would ask, tell them every last little thing, because I don't have any secrets. And I think that helped. I think that's what helped get people to want to buy my stuff, because I understood where I was coming from. I try to make them beautiful. I look at the artists whose work I admire, and every time I'm working on the piece, I ask myself, would I be embarrassed to show this to them? If I'm embarrassed to show it to them, then I'm not going to show it to anybody. There's a certain standard that I try to follow with the work, and I think I set a high enough standard for myself. People like the workmanship involved, the amount of work that I put into it, because I don't want to be embarrassed in front of Bruegel. Jesus Christ, that would kill me. Oh, that'd be hateful if I were to show it to him and he go, get that trash out of here, that would just spear the heart. So, yeah, a lot of it is talking to people. It was really hard for me at the beginning, because I'm naturally a shy person. At least I was. Somewhere along the way, I lost all my vergüenza. So now I yak and yak and yak to anybody. I guess I just come to getting older, getting more comfortable with the notion of speaking to strangers.
Yeah. So if you were, I don't know, 20 years old again, 19, or like getting ready to go to college again, for your BFA, or like trying to decide if you were or were not, would you like what kind of advice would you give yourself or somebody else who's like looking to maybe get a college degree or do like determining like is it worth going to school for art? Is it worth it just to like hone my skills on my own and do something else like if they can't afford it
I
or
know it's hard, but and it wasn't that hard in those days. I mean, there was tuition, but it wasn't outlandish. I mean, you could work, and you'd save up enough for tuition for the next semester. It's not that way anymore. It's ridiculous now. So it's harder. I know it's harder. The whole student loan thing's a scam, as far as I'm concerned. But if you want to be an artist, you need to go to an art school. You need to enter an art program. I mean, yeah, you can work on your own, study on your own, but man, there's something about interacting with other artists and seeing the world through other people's eyes. Changes you and makes you a better artist. I didn't think I was going to benefit from grad school. I mean, I've been a working artist for at that time. At that time, I was working artist for 30 years. What are they going to teach me that I haven't figured out on my own? Because a lot of it is you working on your own, you copying other artists' work, and seeing what you can pull from their work to make it your own. And I didn't think I was good, but no, I learned. I mean, the master's program here at this university, the faculty. I mean, really, they're really excited about what they do. Ryan O'Malley, yeah, Joe Bainey. Oh, I mean, they really were excited about what they were doing, and you know, and they had ideas. They had different perspectives, and I was just thank God I don't have an ego. I was able to just say, yeah, I'll try that, and it served me well. I mean, I really benefited from it. It was hard, you know, working full time, trying to raise kids, or fellow my wife. The end of the day, I mean, I've got to say, it made me a better artist, and that's what I want to be. Every day I want to be a better artist. So, it was a real benefit to me, I think. I don't know if that's just me.
would you have what kind of advice would you have about like searching out art schools? Like how would you determine, right? Because there's so many schools with different art programs and not every art program is the same. Like everybody's got a different like course structure for like what you want to do. Some places like have certain programs like and certain skills you can learn and some places
Well,
don't.
you
Like
can visit if it's nearby, you can visit a campus. But a lot of it, is talking to, you can talk to faculty who met other professors, through conferences or what have you, and they get to know each other. They develop these friendships and this networking, and they can help you find one that fits. Uh, I think for me, that wasn't the case. Obviously, my kid did it, um, but I would, go to if you're really serious about going. uh, I'll talk to faculty at the like here.
mhm.
They know a lot of people. You know, Banyan O'Malley and Greg Roder's retired now, but I mean, they know just about every program in the country, and they can make that little call or tell you who to talk to, and it helps. It's not working.
Right.
You know,
What kind of advice do you have for younger artists who maybe don't know their medium yet, or like you,
try
like you
everything,
said?
try everything, try everything. You know, life is short. Try everything. I mean, I work in oil, but I also work in acrylic, and I love watercolor, and pen and ink is like my first love. So I like pastels. Try everything. Take a photography class. Why not? You know, uh, don't deny yourself because you think you only have one skill.
Have you ever considered getting into digital art with all like you have like all these computers and new technology now?
I've I'm I keep telling myself I'm going to buy one of those. What are those things called? It's basically a screen, a monitor, and you can draw directly on it, and you can change the pen nib. You can change the effect. You
Oh
can just
yeah.
draw on the whole thing, and you can do a whole comic there. Because I still like comics. I
Hmm.
still like to draw comics just for shits and grins. But I keep telling myself I'm going to buy me one of those because those are like the ultimate fun toy for a guy who draws, you know? So, yeah, but I mean, there's a refrigerator's got to get replaced. The fence needs to be repaired. Some rotten wood in the house. So the money goes to the other stuff, and I don't get to play with to buy that yet. But it's to the back of my head all the time. Oh, what's it called? I do know, but I just can't remember the name.
Like not like a tablet, like it's bigger than a
Well,
tablet.
it's bigger than a tablet. It's and I mean, I've seen videos where the artists are using it, and man, it just looks like so much fun. It because he's literally leaning on the thing, and he's drawing on the, and he can make it bigger, he can make it smaller, and he can just with some little click on something, he's able to change the brush size, the density. Oh, hey, holy smokes! Yeah, give me some of that. Yeah, but it'll come. Yeah, and eventually I'll get me one. You know,
Right.
it's gonna happen. I mean, it's inevitable. Yeah, but I just haven't done it yet. And man, if I were to get one, man, I would make a whole lot less paintings. That's a whole other world to explore. That's crazy. It's like, suddenly you're able to breathe the water. Now I got a whole ocean.
Right.
I tell watch you, I'm out of here. And you disappear for years if you can breathe underwater.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, your exhibition that's up at K-Space is up until February 22nd,
Second.
I believe. Would you tell us a little bit about the pieces that are up at the gallery right now?
Well, there's some pieces that I had to pull from collectors, private collectors, some paintings, and a lot of drawings, a lot of pen and ink drawings. I love to draw pen and ink, and I have these special pens. They're not special; anybody can have them. I discovered them during the COVID pandemic. One of my favorite illustrators, William Joyce, has an Instagram account. He posted a drawing, a fine line, very fine line drawing, and then he said, I use this pen, and it was a Pilot High-Tech C 2.5, which is a really fine. It's like a baby's eyelash width, and I was like, I like that drawing. So I looked at the pens, and I ordered them, and they're archival gel pens. Just the way it flows, it's just magical. I had this printmaking paper, Stonehenge, that my son had left behind when he moved to Virginia. So I had some scrap paper. I thought I'd try it out. Just drawing, with those pens on this paper. And it was just like, the effect was, I guess, like tattooing, because as I'm drawing, the ink is sinking into the paper. And one of the things I used to hate about drawing pen and ink is sometimes the ink would well up and you'd smear it with your hand or something. And that just didn't happen anymore. So now I was able to finally find the tools that let me draw as quick as I think, which is just strange. It's just such a weird feeling when you get that Farfignugan. You familiar with that phrase? Volkswagen used to have a commercial in the '60s. That sense of Farfignugan is a German word for the coming together of man and machine, perfect synchronicity between man and machine. So I achieved Farfignugan with this Itexi pen and those that Stonehenge paper. I draw really fast now. I was always a good drawer, and I was always pretty quick, but I go crazy. Thousands and thousands and thousands of fine lines, to build up an image. And I get lost, and time just disappears, and nobody exists anymore until I'm done. But then I step back and I go, holy shit, that's a nice drawing. So I got a lot of those drawings in the show. And I started real small, like 4-inch square, right? I think, it's such a fine little pen nib, And then I said, I gotta go bigger. I can find bigger points. And then I kind of included micron pens now, because a micron set number 12, which is basically a Sharpie marker, with archival ink. So I'm able to draw really big now, so for the big lines and stuff. So I've really, the past few years, I've been exploring, drawing a lot in pen and K-Space. It's really the most current stuff. Some of it's still for sale.
Wink, wink. Yeah, and then all of the images from the exhibition are posted to the Case-Based Contemporary website, so if anyone wants to go check that out, they can do so online even after the show is down. But do you have any last-minute advice you would give to any young artists, people graduating, people, like, anything like
Well,
that?
I mean, don't give up. Don't stop making the art. I mean, I've seen so many friends, who got their masters and teaching at schools, and they're so busy teaching others how to make the art, they don't make their own. And it just breaks my heart. I mean, just don't stop. I know a lot of people got the art degree and then he couldn't make a living from it, so they just quit it altogether and they went to work in other industries. Don't stop. I had a job that I never cared for. I mean, it wasn't a job I liked. I dreaded going every day, but I went, but only because I knew at the end of the day there was a promise that I was going to make art, that I was going to work on stuff. I doodled incessantly. So that's what I would say. At some point, you got to make a little bit of time for yourself and make something, even if it's 30 minutes. Just make something. Sometimes I go to my studio and I just kind of sit there, and just soak in, the world around me and just, and feel like an artist. I mean, it's very important. I mean, if you want to stay healthy mentally, So that's the only advice I would give, I guess. At some point, just keep making it. Don't ever stop.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on our show. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
This podcast is a part of Case-Based Contemporary's art education programming. Case-Based Contemporary is a 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to presenting and promoting contemporary art. As a dynamic forum for creative exchange and experimentation, we strive to educate and raise awareness for innovative art in South Texas. To support this podcast, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Case-Based Contemporary, or check out our education page on Instagram at Case-Based Art Lab. For those interested in contributing or becoming a member of Case-Based Contemporary, please visit our website at www.casebasedcontemporary.org.